Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. WW warned of affair months in advance. Could I have stopped this by working at our relationship harder? Needs support. TL, Dr. WW, who now wants a divorce, told me of her urges to have an affair months before D-Day. Do you think the outcome would have been any different if I worked harder to meet her emotional needs? Maybe I innately already know the answer to this, but it would feel good to have your support and critical feedback. Some months before my STBXW went on her weekend road trip and came back as a changed person, she disclosed to me feelings that she thought about having an affair. We had a dead bedroom that was getting deader, and I was to blame. She complained about not getting regular, frequent sex. But, making threatening statements like that made me even more afraid of it, and we ended up having even less sex after the disclosure. Since this happened, I've been beating myself up for not giving her better sex. In the early days of our relationship, sex was great and plentiful. After we had a child, I just became downright afraid of it. During her pregnancy, I dealt with a horribly long period of unemployment that was the most stressful event of my life. Nobody in my life was there to provide help or emotional support. My wife angrily blamed me for not doing enough for her. In particular, she never forgave me for a brief period of time. I left the hospital after the baby was out because during the birth I was awake for 40 hours with no sleep and went home to get a very brief rest. She says my abandonment during that time was the worst few hours of her life. Throughout the marriage I felt like an accessory for my wife and her family to use for offloading responsibility. I had horrible fears about how her and her family would treat me if she ever became pregnant again. She did not use hormonal birth control, so every cycle felt like a game of roulette, even with condoms. Aside from that, her constant nagging and complaining about wanting a more grand lifestyle just made me feel high-strung all the time. When this pandemic hit and I was the only person working, she continued to make demands for luxury items and novel date ideas, and my libido just plummeted. She became vocal about my avoidance of sex. This only made the stakes feel higher, and I just couldn't get aroused with all the grave consequences attached to sex. I am really doubting myself. I realize I can only share one side of the story, and I know in her mind I brought this on myself because I rejected her advances for sex many times. I'm only asking because I'm still figuring out what my life views should be for any future relationships. I feel even shamed by our marital counselor for the collapse of this marriage being my fault because my fears and rejections were psychologically damaging to my wife's self-confidence. What do you all think of this? Be as harsh and critical as you feel necessary. I'm just trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces of this and continue living. Also, both of my parents are dead and I have no extended family. I've lost touch with most of my friends during the marriage. There is no one I can count on. I am completely alone. No. You can't stop an affair. They make that decision. If I was repeatedly turned down by a partner, even after sharing it was something I was struggling with, it would feel like they could care less. I don't think I'd cheat, but it would probably be over. If they were willing to invest somehow, sensuous touch, creative ideas, etc., it wouldn't be a big deal, but having no response, that I can kind of get. Cheating is still wrong, but I don't know what there is to do with that. I understand the logic of why this happened entirely. This is why I carry horrible guilt. There's a feeling that I didn't do enough. I cared so much, and I didn't want to turn her down. I just couldn't overcome the alarm bells going off in my mind because so much felt wrong with the big picture. We have a marital counselor therapist, but she skipped out on many of the meetings or diverted the topic every time the root cause of my lack of interest I tried to address. You unilaterally decided that you would have a sexless marriage, and your wife warned you that she wasn't willing to give up sex. When you get to this point in a marriage, it's already over. You guys should have got a divorce at that point. She just decided to speed things up with an exit affair. Makes sense. I mean, maybe instead of blame, you can just look at. It seems like you didn't feel a desire to work it out with her anymore. You felt guilty about it, but didn't change that you didn't feel the pull to, and she wasn't offering what you needed to feel a pull. In that instance, it's probably better to move on than keep torturing each other. Maybe. This just couldn't work for either of us anymore, I guess. In that case, there's nothing to be bitter about moving forward. Regardless, your marriage is over. Really sounds like you need to see an individual counselor. There are a lot of options other than destroying the relationship by cheating. There are a lot of options other than destroying the relationship by cheating. I would have been up for trying all sorts of weird kinky stuff in the department if that would have satisfied her. But if she wanted me to be into her again, a lot of progress could have been made by just stopping the incessant complaints about wanting more out of life that we can't afford. Something that I believe points to narcissistic supply is what she gets out of it. At some point she told me that she does not enjoy the whole play aspect of sex. She is not really interested in toys. This is my belief here, but I think she needed the sex to feel validated for self-confidence and not so much the pleasure. It would make sense why me just not being in the mood for whatever temporary reason would be a major deal. Absolutely. I don't know about you, but if I wasn't getting enough in my relationship, I would try all sorts of things. If it still didn't happen, I would decide whether the relationship would work for me like it was and then choose to stay or leave. I would leave before I ever considered cheating. Addicts aren't loyal to their dealers if that dealer doesn't supply them anymore. Most healthy people build their happiness and confidence internally. Waywards are broken in a way that they need it from external sources instead. They need someone constantly telling them they are beautiful, sexy, and lovable. To make matters worse, they are like a dam with a leak under them. The more they receive, the higher the pressure to be better, and the leak grows. This was your wayward. You could have done everything right and it still would not have been enough. You could have killed yourself trying and still would have failed. You had no blame for the cheating. If she had not been a wayward, she would have worked out the DB issues with you. It certainly felt that way. It didn't matter how many times I'd tell her that she's beautiful and sexy. There would have to be more. A little more than a month before D-Day, we took a remote trip out of town and there was no DB there. I thought we had a chance to recover from this. The betrayal event just came totally unexpected for me. If she's the type of person to cheat, no matter what you did, she would have eventually cheated. You guys were done a long time ago. It sucks when people don't leave before they cheat, but most people that aren't happy are monkey branching cowards. They want to try out their shiny new Tesla before they turn over the keys to that old Honda. What did you think, do when she said she wanted an affair? Did you think she was bluffing? I personally spent way too long in a DB marriage and I swore I'd never do it again. Both of you created a situation that kept overlapping to where you're both painted into different corners. Don't be too hard on yourself, but thank you for not coming here pretending to be the perfect husband. It happens a lot around here. I just glanced real quick at your profile and saw your early 30s. Try to move on best you can and get your money right. You're gonna need to talk to someone about your dingy issue to make sure it's only your contempt for her, and that's what it is. Contempt. Stay strong, King. What did you think, do when she said she wanted an affair? Did you think she was bluffing? I did not take it as a bluff. It brought kind of an overwhelming feeling of distress that made the DB worse. Don't be too hard on yourself, but thank you for not coming here pretending to be the perfect husband. I just can't stop flogging myself for letting down someone I loved. The cheating and divorce was hurtful, but I know she's been in a lot too because of my choices and other things beyond either of our control. You're gonna need to talk to someone about your dingy issue to make sure it's only your contempt for her, and that's what it is. Contempt. Stay strong, King. Contempt. I don't think of her as worthless. I just have terrible anxiety from the responsibility of being her caretaker. You say how abusive she's been for a very long time. It's really hard to have a healthy love for someone so abusive. Don't be a martyr. Her wanting bigger, better, newer is pretty common too. Some women want their provider to work themselves to death and use the lack of couple time as an excuse to cheat. You gotta be strong to be a good daddy, but you two are like water and oil. Her wanting bigger, better, newer is pretty common too. Some women want their provider to work themselves to death and use the lack of couple time as an excuse to cheat. That definitely was at play here. A lot of DB nights wasn't just a conscious choice either. I am seriously overworked to make an income. Then when I'm not working, I'm cooking food for the family and doing actively engaging activities with my 6-year-old. Especially over the last year, by the time I put her to bed around 11 or 12, I'm just mentally demolished. Let her go, brother. No matter what she says, if she stays, it's only out of convenience. I'm currently talking on FB with an old friend that used to be my bill. We married sisters and both of them were pretty close to your wife. Save yourself years more of grief. A lot of marriages seem to fail under similar circumstances as this. Yes, they do. All you gotta do is swipe right these days. Be a good dad, leave her out there where she belongs. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.